And now, from the dark corners of the internet, where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the beer flows steady, it's Paul's Security Weekly. This episode is sponsored by the SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security training, certification, and research. Visit sans.org to learn more. And by Black Hills Information Security, the leaders in penetration testing and active defense. Email consulting at Black Hills InfoSec to request a quote today. And sponsored by Squirrel. Pen test networks from your browser. Exploit the limits of network security through just a browser. Have a Chrome exploit in your toolkit? Good. But for the rest of this, there's Black Squirrel. Visit blacksquirrel.io for more information. All right, it's time to fire up a packet capture and pour yourself a beverage of some variety and give the intern control of your Bitcoin mining rig, because here's your host. He's a man who could power a small city with the alcohol currently in his bloodstream, Paul Asadorian.
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Security Weekly. This is episode 412 for Thursday, April 2nd, 2015. And it turns out when you're trying to find out if a cocktail tastes good or not, you're consuming a lot more alcohol than you might know. So I got started early today.
With cocktails that weren't that good, from what I hear.
That's right. Mr. Larry Pesce is here in studio. That's right. Look. Back in studio with the LCD screen. I like it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we put this on the table for badges and stuff during competition at CCDC.
Yep.
Because it's the 10-year anniversary last year for Mid-Atlantic region, and
Nice.
the same password for default stuff has been in use for 10 years of Chia
Nice.
Pet.
Chia Pet. On the lines via Skype, I think we have Mr. Jack Daniel. Is that right?
Where?
Hey.
Where? What?
Hey, Jack.
Who?
Good to see you, or hear you at least. We've got Joff on there as well. Welcome, Joff.
G'day, Paul. How are you? Good
wonderful.
evening, everybody.
And we've got Not Kevin as well.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Thanks, guys, for joining us. We've got a fantastic show, as always. We're going to talk about the Dapper Hacker. The Dapper Hacker. That was what Mick called the segment. And we got some great stories to talk about. Make sure you come to my Embedded Device Security Assessments class hosted at Black Hat Las Vegas. The link to register is in the show notes. That'll be happening this summer at Black Hat. Also Larry is teaching SANS Wireless 617 Wireless Ethical Hacking and Defense, coming up in Austin, Baltimore, and Berlin, Germany. Mm-hmm. All of those dates are in the show notes, so go sign up for SANS at sans.org.
A couple more dates coming up later this year as well.
That's good. I was thinking we should create a page for all of our classes so we can just have one page for everything. Source Boston is coming up, and the early bird pricing is over now. But you should still go to Source Boston because I believe we're all going to be there. At least I submitted a talk, so it should be fun. B-Sides Boston is happening on May 9th. We will all be there for that, so make sure you come to that conference as well. Question of the week. Winner receives a free Hack Naked t-shirt. Send us your favorite cocktail recipe. Winner not only receives a free Hack Naked t-shirt, but their cocktail will be featured on the show. Send email to psw@securityweekly.com. We will pick a winner of whoever submits the best cocktail recipe. I might need some help testing out the cocktails that people send us. Are you guys in? You up for that?
Yeah, forward them to PSW, and we'll start making some of them at home and stuff. So
That's it. Absolutely.
Something to do during the week.
Yes.
Send your liquor bottles. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you can
in.
send your liquor bottles, too. Our very special guest for this evening is none other than John McAfee, who pioneered commercial antivirus when he founded McAfee in 1987, and is considered one of the greatest, most controversial, and outspoken minds when it comes to information security and privacy. Prior to McAfee Associates, John held positions at NASA, Univac, Xerox, CSE, and Lockheed. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'd like to say hello to Mr. Daniels. I met Mr. Daniels at DEF CON just last year. Nice
Hey,
drinking
John.
party.
Yeah.
Also, my friend Eddie Mize, who is in the audience, I think, he said if I did not say hi, he would turn my television set into a shoe. So
he has those powers. He has those powers, indeed.
I've heard that. So and I've got enough shoes.
Awesome.
So hi, Eddie.
So, John, I want to start kind of early on in your career, and we ask all of our guests how you got your start in information security.
Wow. Well, okay. I'm the oldest member of this collective. We're talking together here. I'm 69. I had a summer job with General Electric in Salem, Virginia, when there were no such things as monitors. The punch cards hadn't even existed. You coded computers by going to the front panel and throwing switches. And it was in process automation. And it was so fascinating that I quit graduate school, stayed with General Electric, and just went on. So there was no formal training on programming back then. There was no such thing, really. And General Electric at that time was the leading process automation supplier in the world. So that started it. I fell in love with it. I've been with it ever since.
Very cool.
Very cool.
So now, how did you come to start an antivirus company? I'm very fascinated by this, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, as we're all pretty familiar with McAfee products today. Now, you haven't been involved with the company for over 15 years, but how did you come to one day say, hey, I want to start an antivirus company?
My brother-in-law handed me a newspaper back in 1988 when the first virus came out called the Pakistani Brain. I read it and I thought, what the hell is this? And I thought about it, and then I go, oh, because it replicated itself. Okay, how programs replicate themselves? Then I figured out, of course, this is how they do it. Then simultaneously, I thought of the solution. Now, I ran one of the largest bulletin boards in Silicon Valley back then called Homebase. I just put the program up on the board. A month later, I had 2 million users of that program.
Damn.
The rest is
That's pretty awesome.
Back in the BBS days. Wow.
That's right.
That's right. Internet did not exist, so you had to dial in. I had a 16-line bulletin board, one of the largest in the valley.
That's cool.
That's nice.
Spent a lot of time on it and found a lot of good talent as well.
Absolutely.
So, John, could you provide some of your insights, or the ones you're willing to share publicly, on the Sony Pictures hack? We talked about it on the show, obviously, when it came out. I think it's one of the more prolific breaches that we've covered in quite some time.
I don't want to say too much about it, although I think it's really clear to anybody with a brain that North Korea had nothing to do with it. What the FBI says, I don't care what anybody says, they did not. Other than that, that's it.
So tell us about one of your current projects in the works, Future Tense Central.
Yes. All right, Future Tense Central is a technology company designed to provide security and privacy and products to take power back from the world for individuals. For example, one of my non-programming, non-computer products is a fetal heart monitor. That is, when a woman is pregnant, you go to the doctor he listens to the heartbeat and draws a graph and says everything is fine. Well, we have a home version that for $139. We did the target market in Canada through Toys R Us. It went like haywire. Why would I do something like that? Because number one, I don't like having to pay $200 to go to a doctor. I don't like sitting in offices for 2 hours to see a man for 5 minutes. And it was just something I wanted to do. Other products are devasive, which will allow you to lock down your microphone, your camera, your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, etc., selectively. Or you can just choose it to alert you. Let's say you're walking down the street and you hear a buzzer, and devasive says somebody's monitoring your phone. It's your free fall app. All right. Well, I'd like to know that. So it will tell you that. If you wish, you can lock it down. I lock down everything at night when I plug my phone in, because even if a phone appears to be off, it does not necessarily mean that it's off. Which brings me to my big point. I'd like to talk about Harris Corp and the stingrays at some point during this program.
Sure.
I think that's a great segue.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about that?
Okay. Well, first of all, it first came to my attention over a year ago that the Harris Corporation, when it sells these devices, makes you sign a contract saying that you will tell no one that you own one of these devices. Now, I thought that was very friggin' strange. That's pretty strange. Now, if you've watched the news in the past 2 weeks, things have started to surface. Now, Harris Corp makes a thing called a Stingray. It's a mobile cell phone tower. Allegedly, it's only in the hands of the police, the FBI, the CIA, whoever. But you know for a fact, if 1 million units are out there,
someone's bought one on eBay. Yeah.
They're in the hands of people that are not the police. So here's how it works, and here's the scam that's being perpetrated. Now, if you're a criminal, you're changing phones every 2 or 3 days. You get a burner, you use it once, you throw it. The police are trying to get the goods on someone. So they go to a judge and say, okay, we know this man lives at house 100 on A Street. We need a warrant to listen to his phone. Judge signs off on it. So we can't tell you how we're doing it because it's part of our contract. Now, the mobile cell phone tower will pick up every single phone within a quarter of a mile. Every. So the way that they find the person that they're interested in is by listening to everybody and saying, no, that's a little old lady across the street. Listen to me passing by in a car and go, no, that's a crazy McAfee guy. It's actually happening. And it's happening under our noses, and they refuse. Police refuse, the FBI refused to give any information on this device. Harris says, well, because if we told you any information, then the bad guys could know how to stop it. That doesn't wash with me. That does not wash. Now, I have a mobile tower detector on my phone, and I've had one for a year, something that I built myself because I needed to know. I'm being watched constantly by God knows who. I mean, who wouldn't be watching me? I mean, I allegedly murdered a man in Belize, was running the largest drug lab in Central America, so of course they're watching me. But bad people are too. So there's hardly anywhere I go that I don't locate one of these stingrays.
Well, with 1 million of them out there, you got to figure.
Well, I don't know if there's 1 million of them out there, but I do know that every city in the country has one, or 2 or 3. And if a city the size of Jackson, Tennessee has one, which has a population of 75,000 people, then New York City must have 200 or 300.
John, now, with respects to privacy, do you think we've gone beyond the tipping point of no return to kind of regain a lot of our privacy that we had? I mean, you talked about when you got your start at 1987. And times have changed so much since then. Has there been a tipping point? Is there what can we do to protect ourselves today to kind of gain back some of our privacy?
Well, I don't want to advocate armed revolution, but we have gone so far. Well, we have gone
I might advocate armed revolution.
Yeah,
it does have a healthy track record.
It does. It does. Sorry, go ahead, John.
We have gone so far beyond the tipping point that I can't even tell you. For example, okay, I have one of my programs is a thing called Decentral One. It's on Google Play. It runs on Android devices. It's totally free. It asks for absolutely no permissions at all. Run it. It will tell you all of the check marks you have checked on when you download a game, when you download a Bible reading app. If, for example, there is not a single Bible reading app on the planet that does not ask for permissions to access your microphone, your video, your SMS messages, and your emails, and the right to send them wherever they choose. Now, they actually go to Atlanta to an office of Focus on the Family. But why would a Bible reading app, that is, you say, read to me, my eyes are bad, let's say, and I am going to bed at night, read me the first chapter of Genesis. Why would that need access to my microphone, my camera, my emails? There is nothing free in this world. My father told me that, and I found that to be true. And yet, everything on Google Play is free. It's all free. So you're paying something. What you're paying for is your privacy. So the average person has at least 10 apps on their phone or one of their mobile devices that has permission to access the camera, microphone, and so on. Now, if I had a teenage daughter with a waterproof phone, I know she'd be texting in the shower. No, I'm serious now.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Who's watching? It's not like all of these app developers are IBM or Xerox or Lockheed where they have some audits. No, some of them are just 1 or 2 people in Hong Kong or Taiwan or Canada or where have you. We don't know anything about these people. So what would prevent them from turning it on? The Bank of America online banking app requires you to accept microphone and camera. Now, so that when you're online, now I actually called the bank and said, it took me forever to get in touch with the right person. I said, why on earth does your application want to look at me or to hear me? And he said, here's the reason. It's online banking. If you emptied your account online and then called us tomorrow and said, someone took all my money, it wasn't me, we'll go through and say, well, it certainly looks like you, and it certainly sounds like you when you're laughing about it to your friends. But in order to do that, it keeps the microphone and camera on for half an hour after the fact you finished your banking.
Wow.
Now, what if I banking, take my wife to bed, and I'm indulged in some, I don't know, illegal sexual activity, if I'm in Alabama, for example? Then what the hell? What the hell? So we are already at that point. But that is not the problem. The serious problem is that the government has access to these tools. Stingrays don't just listen to conversations. They are mobile cell towers. As soon as you call and log on, the first thing it does is it does a push. It says, yes, AT&T, this is your AT&T update. And just stand by. And it updates your Android. And you no longer have
wait, aren't those updates signed by AT&T, or are they spoofing the? I would assume that the updates are coming from my phone or signed in some way, so I know they're coming from AT&T.
No, it's spoofing them. This is a mobile cell phone tower. From that device, you can do anything you want to do before they pass the call through to AT&T. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep, that's interesting. So how do we secure our mobile phones?
AT&T network, and it says, hey, I'm sorry, you got to update your operating system. We're doing a download now. Don't turn your phone off. That's the first thing that will happen. Whenever I see that message, I turn my phone off, take the battery out, and do a factory reset. But this is so prevalent, and I promise you, by the end of the year, Harris Corp and these Stingray devices are going to be extremely controversial because they won't say anything about them. They can't even say where they bought them. But the issue of having to listen to everybody in order to find the one you're looking for is outrageous. And you know for a fact this is how it works. It has to work that way. Because how would you get the guy's MAC address if you just bought the phone at Walmart and nobody saw him, or someone just handed it to him?
Right.
So,
hey, John, I can't find it right. Yeah, I can't find it right now. But did you catch the case in Florida where the judge demanded information about how somebody was tracked and arrested, and it came down to being a Stingray or similar technology, and the feds were involved, and the feds wouldn't give local police enough information to continue the prosecution, meet the judge's demands, so they actually withdrew charges rather than expose things, rather than violate that NDA. So actually it was like a drug case. So we're actually letting criminals go because it's more important to hide what Harris and Stingray do than to be transparent and honest about it.
Yeah, but here's what's happened now. How long ago was that case?
It was just a few months ago. I'm sure somewhere in Paul's wiki here we've got it. But it was.
That doesn't matter. But what's happening now is they're so prevalent that the police are getting their press releases from the FBI as to what to say. There were two suits brought in California, one in San Diego and one in Santa Monica, demanding using the Freedom of Information Act to know about these devices. Both refused. And so the suits are going to proceed. This will end up in the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court sides in favor of the government, then we're lost. We are lost. I mean, already we have the NSA gleaning data from Google and Facebook and everything else. We have the CIA doing God knows what, the Secret Service, and then you have every covert agency within the Department of Defense. We have no clue. But we do know they have these devices. These devices not only plant the software on your phone, they intercept your calls. And the software, by the way, is outrageous. It's built by a company in England, that largest computer spy software in the world, that will let them turn on your phone, turn on your micro, turn on your camera, read everything that you do and see everything that is on your screen. That's just not acceptable to me. I'm sorry.
So
we'll see where the court cases go.
So John, what can we do to secure our mobile phones against some of the cases and use cases you were describing?
First and foremost, pay attention to the apps that you download. If you're downloading a game app and they want your email, all of your email addresses, your contacts, if they want access to your microphone and camera, then find another game. That's number one. Number two, run something like Devasive. I'm sure there's other stuff out there by now that will allow you to lock these things down, so that when you're not using your camera, no one can use your camera. When you're not using your microphone, no one can use your microphone. And Devasive is smart enough, by the way, that if you try to make a phone call, it will turn your microphone on. Mm-hmm. So you can lock everything down and just unlock it when you need it. That way, when you're not using your phone, or if you're not using it for that purpose, you don't have to worry about some app spying on your teenage daughter in the bathroom. That's number two. Thirdly, if your phone begins to act odd, I mean, if it's running out of battery power sooner than it used to, if it turns itself on, if you get weird little flash, and anything that's weird about your phone that changes. I mean, this is software, it doesn't change. Do a copy off all of your important information onto a card and do a factory reset. I do a factory reset about once a week. It's a nuisance, but it helps me.
And you're on the Android or iOS or
that you push? Okay, it just goes into your tools, find backup and restore, and it's in there.
And you're on Android or iOS, or what are your kind of thoughts on
Android? Let me tell you something about my beliefs in life. Okay, I believe in competition. I believe in variety, but in the world of software, and especially now, Google owns 88% of all the operating systems on mobile devices out there now. 12% is shared between Microsoft, BlackBerry, and a host of others. And that gap is narrowing. Why? Because Google owns Chrome. Google owns Android. Google owns the information. You cannot win against this. I've stopped making products for Windows. Well, I did one product. I did a Devasive product for Windows last week. That's the last product I'm going to do for Windows, and I'm abandoning the iPhone as well. I mean, I know that sounds catastrophic and like some ranting old man, but believe me, in 2 years' time, there won't be an iPhone.
It's okay, John. They're used to ranting old men on this show.
Yeah. We have our own resident ranting old man in the form of Jack. So what other kinds of problems do you think that the security industry has failed to address? Certainly, I think there's a lot of privacy issues that you brought up that are very enlightening. But what are some of the other issues that you think we've failed to address thus far, I should say?
Let me reverse that question and tell you where all the wasted energy is going. Everybody is worried about encryption. What about this? What about the NSA having the key? Encryption is not our problem anymore. Do you understand? In a world where someone can plant on your phone software that can bypass any sort of communication media and see exactly what you are seeing on your phone, does encryption matter? Hell no.
Nope.
Because they're on your phone. They're going to the second channel and they're watching what you see. So if you're reading a document that's private, they're reading that same document. This is reality. Everybody has mobile devices. How often do you use your phone as your main computing device throughout the day, or your tablet? How often?
More often than I should probably admit.
Everybody does. That's what we're all moving. I'm on a Samsung S900 here. I stopped using my pad and my laptop about 6 months ago. Why? I can do Skype calls. I mean, admittedly, the text is kind of small in some cases, but who cares? It's convenient. That's where we're all headed. And in that world, not only can Stingrays implant devices, I can implant devices on your phone. I can call you and have you call me back, and I can have something put on your computer. on your phone. The problem is not encryption, making sure that when it leaves here and goes there, that no one catches it in between. Nobody's looking in between anymore. They're looking at what you're looking at. It is the end product that's the risk now. It's not that intermediate step. Even though I have a chat app called Chatter, which has one of the strongest encryptions in the world. It's a server key encryption. Nevertheless, really, we're not headed that way. The biggest problem in security is training, especially in corporations. Most corporations do not have a clue where their risks lie. I heard you mention B-sides, and I assume you go to DEF CON and everything. You know how simple it is using human engineering to get into anybody's anything, right? Once you've done it with let's say an Android phone, and that person takes the phone back to work, problem solved. Depending on how that phone is used and how close it is to some other phone, you can use Bluetooth or on the same Wi-Fi network. We're looking at the wrong thing. This is no longer a world where we have massive data centers that have all the critical data and they need to be protected. No, every damn one of us has a data center. It's in our hands. And that data center is connected through millions of other data centers in people's hands. And every now and then we contact headquarters to get X, Y, and Z, but really it's all in our hands, all of it. Because where does data come from? It comes from us. It doesn't manufacture itself out of thin air. It comes from people. So we're approaching things from the wrong end. What you have in your hand is a smartphone. Has 4 times the processing power, 10 times the memory, and more apps than you can mention than the Dell $400 computer.
John, who does security better? Kind of a segue off of that. Is it businesses? Is it the military? Is it the government? Is it other people's governments? Who does security better?
Well, the Secret Service does security better than anybody. But I would have to say the military. The military, keep in mind that security is their job. And I'm sure that somebody within the Department of Defense has already said what I have said at a meeting somewhere, going, hey, listen, we're either going to have to take the phone, our smartphones away from all of our pilots and career servicemen, or we're going to have to do something. Training is what we need. We need to train people. Spoofing. My God, I get spoofed all the time. People call me and say, "What did you send me that fucked up email for?" I didn't say no. All right. And anybody can do it. You can download free programs that can let you spoof text messages, voice calls, whatever you want. And if you don't like the spoofing, they have setups offshore where you can get a brand new phone number every minute if you want. And someone can call you back on that number. It's like crazy. So I assume that the Department of Defense has looked at this and possibly has some green paper or white paper on it, but they haven't shown me, or nor anyone else that I'm aware of. But if they have not looked at this, then we're in deep shit. Because we know for a fact that the Russians have looked at this problem.
John, I want to ask you about some of your other projects. What was the driving force behind QuickFunder, rather? Sorry.
Well, the driving force for me was the man who ran it, and he is just a brilliant Southern gentleman that sounds like like the Southern people. They talk real slow like this, and you think, God, that they must have an IQ of 4.
Yes, yes, yes. It's social engineering at its finest, is what that is, John.
Right, you got an IQ of 400 is what it is, and so that's why they're so damn successful in business. You pay no attention to them while they're taking everything away from you. Mm-hmm. So that's what got me involved in QuickFunder. I just wanted him. And he's now COO of Future Tense, and he is one of the most remarkable. So, and also, Crowdfunding, by the way, you understand that the Congress passed a law so that soon crowdfunding programs can actually sell stock. And what's this going to do to NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange? So anyway,
Interesting.
It seemed like a good deal from both a business standpoint and from finding somebody to run my company. So,
Eddie Mize asked us to recap your story of the power company ponage story. I want to make sure we get that in there because I don't want to forget our good friend Eddie.
the power company, what now?
He says,
Go ahead, Eddie
Barry.
said you had
Jack.
a great story about a utility company getting owned. Something about utilities and compromises. He just said, make sure you ask John about that. So something about a power company or utility company that had a compromise or a weakness or something.
That's Eddie's story. I mean, that would basically that's doing a
so this is Eddie can't say it, but we can make John say it. Okay, I got it.
Although when he told that story, it cracked me up. It all boiled down to he sat outside the facility for a week watching the cars coming in and out. And every Thursday, a beat up old truck with a gang of Mexicans were coming in to do the yard. Okay, so the next week he came with that truck and just step by step got all the way in. The final step, which is interesting, he and his friend were trying to pick the lock on the central computing system when a security guard came by. Eddie stood up and said, "Oh, thank God. Will you let us in here because we don't have our keys?" Well, they were already in the central, so the security guard didn't think anything about it. He said, "Oh yeah, here." He opened it for him. I thought that was spectacular.
Brilliant.
That was
Brilliant.
John, what's your take on President Obama's recent executive order?
Which one was that?
The one where he's this is one where if we hadn't seen the Snowden and everything else that's come in the past few years, we might feel different. But he's saying that he's got an emergency powers to seize people's assets if they're attacking the U.S. So theoretically, it's based on you have to be a nation-state attacker of U.S. properties, and we're going to use not seizing but freezing your assets. And I just wonder what you think about. We need to do something about having intellectual property stolen, but wonder what your perspective with your years of experience in industry and watching industry is on trying to do this politically and through people's wallets.
I think I have different ideas on intellectual property. I don't believe in intellectual property. I really don't. When I founded McAfee, the very front screen said, "Please steal this software." Never copyrighted it. I never patented it. I just ran with it. There are many countries in the world that do not have intellectual property rights because to them it makes no sense. What does that actually mean? We are standing on the shoulders of giants, all of us. Isaac Newton, who invented the calculus. I mean, good Lord, what is intellectual property? I have an idea. Well, good God, everybody has ideas. Everybody has ideas. It's what you do with it that matters. You have an idea, run with it. Someone else has the same idea, you run with it too. That's what competition is all about. But forget that for the time being. What do I think of the executive order? Here's what I have learned. It does not matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or what have you, a libertarian. When you get to be the president, you get corrupt. You are corrupt, and you think more about the power that you can retain after you leave office than you do about anything else. Most people think about how not to leave office, like FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt. I don't know how many terms he ran, but he started as a young man and he was in his early hundreds, I think, when he quit. So this is just what happens to people. You get power, something happens to your mind, and you want to control things. You think because you have power that you have the intelligence and the wisdom to make decisions for people. Well, not me. Then no one's going to make a decision for me. This is my life. We've already abdicated everything else to the government. After 9/11, the Homeland Security is created and say, Put your trust in us. We will keep you safe. There's no such thing. No such thing as safety. Not unless you create it yourself. I mean, do you actually believe if a burglar breaks in your house, standing in your bedroom with a gun to your head, that you can push a magic button and the police is going to appear between you and the burglar? No. Later, after you've been shot, and try and solve the crime. Security and safety do not exist unless you create them yourself. So what happens is that dictators, and I think every man in power wants to be a dictator secretly somewhere inside, and certainly political dictators are seeking one thing: the holy grail of dictatorship. Or forget dictatorship, totalitarianism. I did an interview with the largest Russian magazine last week, and they asked some very intense questions. I like the Russians, and they said, how would you describe what's happening in America? I said, well, America is turning into a capitalistic totalitarian regime. And he thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. I was serious. I was serious there, because the holy grail of totalitarianism is absolute knowledge. Every word, action, feeling, and thought of the populace. How close are we to that right now? I think we're very close to that. And if our government has not thought about how they can use that to retain the structure and the ideals that exist within the current administration, then someone's not thinking right. So you know, I don't trust any president. They are all the same after they sit down in that Oval Office and realize, well, I run this country. First thing that comes to mind is, I need to protect all of my people. I need to do this. I need to do that. If you ask me, Congress, Senate, all three branches of government, let's give them a year's vacation. I promise you, nothing bad will happen. Nothing bad will happen. We'll still have roads. We'll still have everything else, except we'll save a bunch of taxes.
You know,
laws are being created at an alarming rate. There used to be 10 laws, right? Do not kill, do not discover thy wife, nor thy neighbor's ass, or whatever. But now, hundreds of thousands of expanding laws upon laws upon laws. What is this all about? Seriously. Because if I cannot read every law, I cannot possibly adhere to every law. There's no way you can read all of these laws. There's no way you can adhere without some secondhand knowledge that, hey, you don't smoke dope in public here because you're going to get arrested. But we have too much of this. Go home, everybody. So what do I think of the executive order? I don't give a shit. I really don't. Because it will be removed or reversed by the next president, or it will be overturned by the judiciary, or it will stay in place until somebody revolts. I'm more concerned with, why aren't people taking matters into their own hands? Why aren't we standing up and saying, I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. Because I'm mad as hell, clearly. This is the issue. It's not the government. What do we think about Obama? What do we think about? No, what do we think about ourselves? Why the fuck aren't we out in the street with signs?
Here.
John, I want to ask you a semi-serious question. How do I uninstall McAfee Antivirus?
There's probably the best uninstall is on YouTube. You just go to the John McAfee channel, and it's pretty close to the top. And it's just how to uninstall McAfee.
Yeah, it's some of the best technology video in the world.
Yes, absolutely hilarious. I loved it.
Not hilarious, serious.
John, you mentioned before your dealings in Belize. Is there any thing you want to share with our listeners about recently what's happened with that whole situation, as it was popular in the news, and a lot of our listeners were curious?
Oddly enough, Dateline just this past Thursday, last week, did another hour on that topic. They charmed me into believing they were going to talk mostly about my new company. They spent about 15 seconds on the company, the rest of the time on Belize. But then that's state line, isn't it? Well, I'm getting treated better by the press as more and more information comes out about the country. Here's the facts of it. I was a stupid American, took all of my money, all of my assets, went to Belize, not to escape anything, but to retire. It's a beautiful country.
It is. I've been there. It's actually beautiful. Yeah, you're right.
It has the second largest barrier reef in the world. It's got a jungle, rolling hills interior. If you go to the interior, you can't walk more than 15 minutes without stumbling on some old Mayan ruins that have not been excavated yet. So gorgeous place. But I was foolish. I was there, and I lived on the island of San Pedro, which is an American expat enclave. And I said, I'm going to move to the interior. Not move, but I bought a house on the New River in a little town called Orange Walk. I was the only white man in town of 15,000 people. I built this massive compound on the banks of the New River. Then I started developing a new wave antibiotic based on quorum sensing, which is a new science of bacterial communication. Loved that science. So I was out there with a big lab. I had armed guards. Why? Because every lab in the world, I mean, I'd get white people knocking on my gate. What are you guys doing here in Orange Walk? Oh, well, we're with Merck Company. We'd like to talk to you about your research.
Get out.
So that's why I had the guards. I was there for 2 years, and the local politician came and said, Mr. McAfee, I'm sorry we haven't met. But the election is coming up. If you could fund us $2 million, that'll guarantee our election. And in return, we've got 100,000 acres of land along the river up here. We've got all this other stuff. We've got women. We've got God knows what. And I said, really, I'm just not interested. I'm too old for all of that. A week later, 42 armed soldiers stormed my compound, shot my dog in front of my eyes, destroyed $500,000 worth of my property and all of my laboratory, kept me handcuffed in the sun for 14 hours with my hands behind my back, kneeling. Try that sometime. Then they left. The next day, the guy came back and said, oh, God, I'm so sorry, Mr. McAfee. What a mistake that was. Oh, God, we are so sorry. We just can't know how to apologize. By the way, have you reconsidered your donation? So get the fuck off my property. And I went to the international press. So here's what I was trying to do. So I did some underhanded things. I gifted lower employees of the government computers, laptops. All of them I had keystroke logging software on. I knew that the computers would be stolen by the higher ups as soon as they got them because I shipped them to the offices. And I started monitoring what the government was doing. Why? I wanted to find proof that they had set me up so that they would give me a fucking apology and reparation for their damages. And I don't know how you reparate the damage of a killed dog who was your best friend. Instead, good God Almighty, I didn't find anything out about that. I did find out that the Prime Minister was engaged in extrajudicial murder of all of his competitors. The Minister of National Defense was the largest human trafficker in all of Central America. The Minister of Finance was into drugs, and everybody else was into equally as an equivalent of offshore things. So that went on for about a year. I didn't know what to do with this stuff until one of the employees, because I had a lot of people working for me collecting this data, people who I thought I trusted, ratted on me. The next day, my neighbor was murdered. I went on the run. And I've been on the run ever since. There was an attempt on my life in Portland in 2012, September the 13th, 2012. My wife was with me, witnessed the entire affair. 2:15, and I got an alert from the American Embassy in Belize. Well, not officially the embassy, but an employee of the embassy saying something's coming, and it's this week. So I was up watching at 2:15 in the morning, 2 police officers on motorcycles and a black sedan and a garbage truck pulled up outside our condo.
Jesus, that's scary.
My wife and I ran downstairs. We hid under a car for 5 hours while they searched the entire building for us. Garbage trucks don't collect garbage at 2:15 in the morning. And when I went to the FBI said, police officers don't drive, motorized police in Portland don't drive after dark. So there were either rogue officers or people in fake uniforms. Ever since then, I've been sort of half on the run. And these, I found out again from the American Embassy in Belize that the Belizean government had hired the Sinaloa cartel to remove me. So that's my story about Belize. Not very exciting.
We have to segue now into 5 silly questions, John. I feel like it was a more serious moment there, but I kind of want to lighten things up. Thank you for coming on the show and ask you if you're ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly.
Well, what do I get if I win?
We'll send you a Hack Naked T-shirt. How's that?
And our undying affection.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do it for a Bangkok prostitute. But, okay, I'll do it, yes.
Okay. So, John, 3 words to describe yourself.
3 words to describe myself. You want this serious, I guess.
As serious or as not serious as you want to make it.
Exactly. Creative, generous, and foolish.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
A serial killer. A Marine sniper rifle.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
God help us.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
What? One more time.
Okay, ready? In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
I don't know the game, but I always like to go second because I want to see what happens to the first man. But,
Yeah, excellent.
Okay?
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive or dead?
Celebrities. Man. Hey, that's a really tough one, alive or dead. Wow. Socrates and Shakespeare.
Excellent.
Very cool.
John, thank you very much for appearing on Security Weekly. It was a pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you very much. And say hi to Eddie again.
We will. We hope to see you at DEF CON this year.
Good talking to you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
With that, we'll take a short break. We're going to come back and do a segment called The Dapper Hacker. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.